Sometimes life sends you a gentle whisper, sometimes it sends a storm, and sometimes it sends a stranger who quietly holds up a mirror, showing you who you truly are. This is the story of a man who believed the world troubled him until he discovered that the real storm was hidden inside his own heart. Chief of Rice, the restless man of Karnataka, in the quiet green fields of Karnataka, where mornings smelled of wet soil and evenings glowed softly under lantern lights, there lived a man named Raghav. People in the village knew him for one thing, his restlessness. If he had to wait in a line for even 1 minute, his foot began tapping loudly. If his tea arrived a little late, he sighed so deeply that everyone around him would turn to look. If someone spoke slowly, his eyebrows rose with irritation, as if patience itself was an enemy. He believed the world was too slow. He believed people wasted his time. He believed life should move exactly the way he wanted. But what he didn't realize was this: he was rushing through life, and life was rushing through him too. Moments of peace were slipping out of his hands, and he didn't even notice. Anaia's worry every evening, when the sun melted behind the trees, his wife Anaia watched him pacing restlessly. She would say, "Raghav, why do you rush through everything? Why do small delays make you so upset?" And every evening Raghav replied with the same words, "Because time is precious. People should learn to be fast." Anaia would sigh deeply, not because she disagreed, but because she could see something he couldn't, the weight he carried inside. The morning of missing sandals one morning, Raghav was getting ready to go to the town market. But his sandals were missing. He looked under the bed, behind the door, inside the kitchen, nothing. He shouted, "Who moved my sandals? Why can't this house stay organized?" Anaia stepped out quietly and said, "They must be near the door. You always leave them there." But Raghav didn't listen. He stormed outside, and there they were exactly where she said. He muttered angrily and walked toward the road. Ox the slow cart on the way to the market. A bullock cart moved slowly in front of him, too slowly for Raghav. He tried to pass, but the path was narrow. He shouted from behind, "Move faster, I have work." The old man driving the cart turned gently and said, "Son, the road is long, you will reach." But Raghav could not accept these words. He rushed past the cart, shaking his head. "These people," he muttered, "they don't value time." But the universe was watching, and it had a lesson ready. Crescent moon the lantern, and the tightness within that night. Sitting alone under a dim lantern, he felt something heavy inside his chest. A discomfort, a tiredness, a strange tightness he had never noticed before. He whispered to himself, "Why do I feel tired all the time?" But he had no answer. Life, however, had one. Deciduous tree, the banyan tree, and the stranger the next morning, he walked to the old bus stop near the giant banyan tree. He needed to go to town to collect a parcel. There he saw an elderly man wrapped in a saffron shawl, sitting peacefully with a calm smile. His eyes were soft, steady, almost glowing with quiet wisdom. His name was Hari Baba, a wandering storyteller, a traveler of hearts, a man who carried stories instead of belongings. Children sat around him. Women offered him buttermilk. Men asked him questions about life, but Raghav looked at him and thought, another man with nothing to do. And then the bus ran late. As usual, Raghav's irritation grew with every passing minute. He said loudly, "Why is this bus always late? Nothing is ever on time." Hari Baba turned to him and smiled gently. "Son," he asked softly, "may I ask you something?" Raghav frowned. "What?" "Do you get angry when the sun rises late?" Raghav blinked. "The sun never rises late." "Do you shout at a river when it flows slowly?" "No, of course not." Hari Baba nodded slowly. "Then why do you shout at humans?" he asked, who are far more complicated than suns and rivers. Raghav opened his mouth, but no words came out. The old man continued, "You are angry because you expect life to move at your speed. But life has its own rhythm, and it will not change for you." For the first time in a long time, something inside Raghav softened, just a little. Bricks the clay pot lesson. Hari Baba picked up a small clay pot the villagers had gifted him. It was simple, light, empty. He handed it to Raghav. "Hold this." Raghav took it. "Now squeeze it as hard as you can." Raghav pressed it tightly. Within moments, his fingers began to hurt. Hari Baba asked, "Is the pot hurting you?" "No, my hand is hurting." "Exactly," the old man said. "This pot is your expectations. You are squeezing life too tightly, and the pain is not coming from life. It is coming from your grip." He gently placed the pot on the ground. "Life becomes easier," he said, "when you hold it lightly." Something deep shifted inside Raghav, like a door had opened quietly after years of being locked. He didn't say a word. He just looked at the pot, and then at his own hands. Crescent moon, the beginning of change that evening. Raghav tried something unusual. He told himself, "Today, I will not rush." And life instantly sent him a test. His neighbor, Lakshmi, the friendly schoolteacher, walked by and said, "Raghav, can you help me carry these books to the school?" Normally he would say, "I'm busy." But this time he paused. He breathed. He remembered the clay pot. "Okay," he said softly, "I will help." They walked slowly, talking about the children, the monsoon, the mango trees blooming early. For the first time in many years, Raghav heard the birds, smelled the wet soil, noticed the laughter of children in the distance. Something inside him loosened. Something inside him lit up. When he returned home, Anaiya looked at him with surprise. "You seem calm today," she said gently. Raghav smiled softly, quietly, genuinely. "I am trying to hold life lightly. Change never arrives loudly. Sometimes it begins with a breath, sometimes with a small pause, and sometimes with a simple clay pot placed gently on the ground." For Raghav, change had begun, but life was still waiting to test how deeply he had learned. Sheaf of rice a new day, a new struggle the next morning. Raghav went to the market. The air was warm, the streets were crowded, vendors shouted, children ran between the shops. It was the perfect storm for his old temper. Water spilled near his feet. A man bumped into him. A woman took too long to count change. His old self wanted to shout, to complain, to explode, but he took a breath. He remembered the pot. He remembered the pain in his hand. So, when the vendor apologized for spilling water, Raghav simply said, "It's okay. Just be careful next time." When the man bumped into him, he stepped aside instead of pushing back. For the first time in his life, he felt something unusual. He felt free. Because he realized something powerful. He was no longer fighting the world. He was simply adjusting his grip. Deciduous tree days of soft change days passed, then weeks, and people noticed the change. Raghav began walking more slowly. He talked gently. He listened before speaking. His voice became calm like a morning river. His eyes carried softness instead of sharpness. Children came to him with their tiny problems. "Uncle, my kite tore." "Uncle, my pencil broke." "Uncle, can you help me tie my sandal?" He never shooed them away now. Instead, he smiled and helped. Shopkeepers who once avoided him now greeted him warmly. Women in the village smiled when they saw him helping Anaiya in the courtyard, something he never had patience for earlier. Life, which once felt heavy and chaotic, began to feel lighter. He began noticing the colors of sunsets, the shapes of clouds, the sound of wind passing through banana leaves. All of these had always existed, but Raghav had never paused long enough to see them. Seedling the young boy's question one afternoon, a little boy named Dietrich came running to him. "Uncle, how did you become so calm?" he asked, looking up with curious eyes. Raghav smiled. Children always ask the most honest questions. He sat beside the boy on the stone platform near the old well and said gently, "I stopped squeezing life. I started holding it lightly." The boy nodded slowly. He didn't fully understand, but he remembered the words. Sometimes wisdom is a seed. It grows later. Bus the final test a week later. Raghav stood again at the old banyan tree bus stop. The bus was already 25 minutes late. People were irritated, some paced, some complained, some left. Raghav felt his heartbeat grow faster. A tiny spark of the old irritation rose inside him. And just then Hari Baba appeared, walking calmly with his saffron shawl. He looked at Raghav and smiled warmly. "Ah, the world is testing you today." Raghav exhaled slowly. "You're right," he said softly. "And I'm trying." The old man sat beside him. He said, "Let me tell you something. Listen carefully." Raghav leaned forward. "When a drum is too tight, it makes loud, unpleasant noise. When it is too loose, it cannot make a sound. But when it is balanced, when the tension is just right, it creates beautiful music." He looked at Raghav with eyes full of peace. Humans are the same. Too tight brings pain. Too loose brings carelessness. Balance brings peace. Raghav stared at the ground. He whispered, "I never realized how unbalanced I was." Hari Baba nodded gently, "But now you do, and knowing is the beginning of wisdom." Just then, the bus finally arrived. But Raghav no longer cared. His heart was still. His mind was calm. He understood something life had been whispering for years. Peace does not come from the world. Peace comes from the space you create inside yourself. The months that followed seasons changed. Monsoon clouds arrived. Fireflies filled the night. The air became cool, and Raghav became a different man. Not perfect, not saintly, just calmer, kinder, lighter. He didn't rush anymore. He didn't shout. He didn't blame the world for delays and imperfections. He began waking up early and sitting quietly outside his house, listening to the morning birds. He started helping his neighbors with small tasks. He became patient in the market crowd. He even learned how to laugh at unexpected delays. His heart felt lighter. His mind felt softer. He moved through life gently, and life responded in the same way. The villagers often said, "Raghav has changed. He has become peaceful." But Raghav would shake his head and say, "No, I have only learned to loosen my grip." Blossom, the message he passed on winter, arrived. One evening, as he sat outside watching children play, a young man approached him. "Uncle," he said, "how do I stop feeling restless? My mind is always running. I get angry easily. People irritate me." Raghav looked at him with the same soft eyes Hari Baba once looked at him with. He said, "Let me tell you something. You don't need to control the world. The world will never move at your speed. You only need to adjust your grip." He picked up a nearby leaf and placed it on the young man's palm. "Hold this," he said. The young man did. "Now hold it too tightly." The leaf crumbled. "Now hold it too loosely." It fell. "Now hold it lightly." The leaf rested peacefully. Raghav smiled. "That," he said, "is how life should be held." The young man nodded slowly. This time the message reached his heart. Crescent moon, the wisdom that remained. Sometimes life runs slow. Sometimes people delay you. Sometimes plans break. Sometimes days twist in ways you never expect. But your peace, your calm, your breath should not depend on the world. Because the world has its own rhythm, and it will never match yours. But if you learn to walk gently, if you learn to hold life lightly, if you learn to soften your expectations, then life becomes softer. People become easier. the heart becomes lighter, and as Hari Baba said, balance brings music, balance brings peace. Glowing star, the final words. So the next time you feel restless, the next time the world tests your patience, the next time things move slower than you want, remember the clay pot. Remember the pain not from the world, but from your own grip. Whisper to yourself, I will not squeeze life, I will hold it lightly, because the one who walks gently walks far.